dawn of mankind, humans have drawn pictures, sculpted figures, and told stories of their enemies to warn their community. Over time, as these things are passed down, their meaning changes to reflect the present era. Now, you might be asking, why study this topic at all? And well, dear viewer, I'm studying this and bringing it to your attention because I have noticed the dehumanization and demonization of others throughout the media. At the root of it all is the depiction of Satan and the personification of evil. In The Origin of Satan, the author states this better than I ever could. I invite you to consider Satan as a reflection of how we perceive ourselves and those we call others. Satan has, after all, made a kind of profession out of being other. And so Satan defines negatively what we think of as human. Much of the time, those who so label themselves and others are engaging in a kind of caricature that helps define and consolidate their own group identity. This sounds pretty familiar to the intrinsic racism in America. When I first read this, I decided that I had to focus this project around the inherent discrimination in Satan and how Christianity and other cultures shape their depiction of the devil around characteristics of their enemy. Now, without further ado, let's dive right in. To begin, who even is Satan, and how did he become the ruler of hell? Satan himself wasn't evil in the first place. In fact, he started off as God's right-hand man, with him being part of God's army, testing his people and steering them in the right direction towards what God wanted. Literally, the root word sten means one who opposes, obstructs, or acts as an adversary. We see this again in the Greek terms diablos, meaning one who throws something across one's path. Quite literally, in the book of Job, he is described as a spiritual messenger, but as common with history, as time went on, the view of this origin story changed. He went from being an ally of God to his messenger who would go against him to being fully God's enemy. The story became that he questioned God and got thrown out of heaven and was disgraced. His name was changed to the Latin name Lucifer, meaning light bearer. Then it changed to the popular story of how a group of angels, driven by lust, went down to earth and had children with the human women there, making children who were half angel and half human, most of the time being depicted as giants who took over the earth and polluted it. Then comes the story of Adam and Eve, which I don't feel the need to explain, as it's reiterated multiple times throughout history. At first glance, these stories of Satan may seem to have little in common, yet they all agree on one thing, that this greatest and most dangerous enemy did not originate, as one might expect, as an outsider, but in fact, he is your most trusted friend, your family, and even yourself, the most intimate enemy. So not only is Satan the personification of evil, he is also a reflection for the hatred we hold for ourselves. This is seen in how the early Christian church preaches that Satan was the one who seduced Eve and begot in her two sons, Cain and Abel. Thus, from that time up to the present day, sexual intercourse continued, because of the chief ruler who planted the sexual desire in Eve, despite spirituality and the want for sex being inherently natural. Pagels goes on to say that the desire for money, passion, and other factors of human life were considered, and still are, an enslavement of the mortal world, which is considered to be ruled by Satan, and that it will cause them to die without knowing God. In the book The Art of the Devil, written by Arturo Graf, it is stated that the church made good use of Satan, employed him as the most effective political tool, and gave him all possible credit, since what men would not do through love of God or in a spirit of obedience, they would do through the fear of the devil. As early as the year 811, Charlemagne accused the clergy of abusing the devil and hell for the sake of flinching money and seizing estates. Both of these authors depict how the church used Satan as a symbol of shame, calling their natural desires as demonic and saying that they should refrain from them. One of God's angels literally says that the demons used to be holy, spirits possessing eternal life, but now they have defiled themselves because they had sex with humans. The irony of it all is how it is preached that someone's body is created in the image of God, but also that the human body is a tempter that must be avoided lest you give in to natural urges. The ability to be attracted, to consider, and then to choose is an attribute that distinguishes man from animal. There's beauty in temptation, whereas I have never found glory in guilt. Who is more vile? A sleek preacher who tells you how wretchedly wicked you are, that your best days must be postponed until some promised future, or an urban, compassionable gentleman who suggests that your finite days on this splendid planet are to be seized, savored, and thoroughly enjoyed? The choice is yours. So, overall, the devil is used as a caricature of anyone that the church perceives as the enemy, even our own hearts. And this is especially so when the church spread and realized how easy they could convert people through fear and conquer through cultural genocide. In the book titled The Devil's Mischief, in which his own story is told in word and pictures by Marquand, he writes, not all torture takes place in hell, you know. Some of the most diabolic abuse has occurred within the confines of the church. To emphasize this, let's dive into the wacky history of the forms of Satan. As the church spread throughout the globe, the devil's form changed as the enemy changed, resulting in a being that was a melting pot for different religions, cultures, philosophies, and much more. Initially, Satan was modeled after the Jewish people, who Jesus and his followers deemed to be demonic, as their status as a Jewish person was deemed not enough to be accepted into the kingdom of heaven. This is shown when Jesus preaches to others, illustrated by Mark. Again, he began to teach beside the sea, and a very large crowd gathered about him, and he taught them many things in parables. And when he was alone, those who were around him with the 12 asked about the parables, and he said to them, "To you has been given the secret of the kingdom of God, but for those outside everything is in parables, so that they may indeed see but not perceive, and they may hear but not understand, lest they should turn again and be forgiven." At that time, it was questions of who recognizes the Spirit in Jesus as divine and who does not, who stands on God's sides and who stands on Satan's. The dramatic choice confronting Jesus' followers was that they must take sides in a war that allowed no neutral ground. Christianity continued to fuel the fires of anti-Semitism as more Gentile people joined the church. His name changed too, with words like Beelzebub, Semahaza, Azazel, Belial, Prince of Darkness, and much more. This massive change goes back to the idea of we versus them. As Pagels states in her book, many anthropologists have pointed out that the worldview of humans consists essentially of two pairs of binary oppositions, human versus not human, and we versus they. Apart from anthropology, we know from experience how people dehumanize enemies, especially in wartime. This is further proven by how the image of Satan and the dehumanization of others changed to address the pagan people. Christians believed that other religions, no matter what, were the work of Satan. And so deities from other religions like Jove, Juno, Apollo, Mercury, Neptune, Cerberus, and fauns and satyrs were transformed into demons, and Satan himself took on some of their characteristics. Even real people like Pilate, Nero, and Muhammad were transformed into demons. In the Middle Ages, he changed even further as sadness, fear, and terror dominated the era. In that troubled and unhappy period wherein Christianity shows itself most vigorous, the myth of Satan flourishes also, gloomy and stupendous in the consciousness of the Christian peoples. People began to fear everything around them, and with it, the hatred for this mysterious being and the people considered to be associated with him grew too. Ultimately, those were imaginary threats, targeted at victims. Yeasty fear that can grow into something mean and irrational. This requires intolerance, hatred, exclusion, and distrust. Impulses as old as the devil. Was Satan not, in fact, the very first victim? Graf notes that the figure of Satan had to suffer the consequences of this, and this excess gave rise to the proverb, "The devil is not so black as he is painted." And black he is. In numerous paintings, Satan is shown as having black or red skin, and that he has a disfigured form to push the idea that ugliness is equivalent to wickedness. The uglier a being is, the more demonic it must be. But if it's too beautiful, then it also must be demonic. The smaller details, however, change. The Manichaeans, famous heretics that came into being around the mid-200s, depicted Satan as a giant. The Vision of Tundal, an originally Latin story written by Brother Marcus in 1149, depicted Satan as not only a giant, but also a being with 100 arms, hands, and feet. Sometimes the devil was also a dwarf, and in others he is given 3 faces as a direct contrast to the Holy Trinity. Most of the time, the demons had ox horns, donkey ears, faces on the joints, breasts, bellies, butts, and groins. In some, the male demons are shown as having a penis that is twisted to show their demonicness. He has legs of a goat and feet that are either talons or webbed claws. He's even said to be able to change into animals like dragons, serpents, scorpions, foxes, toads, snails, flies, ants, ravens, bats, dogs, goats, cats, and much more. Several saints even excommunicated flies and either other noxious insects, or even reptiles, and rid houses, cities, and provinces of their presence. The trial of animals conducted in the Middle Ages and even in the height of the Renaissance are famous in the annals of superstition. The beasts were arraigned, as were the devils. In 1474, the magistrates of Basel tried and condemned to the flames a diabolic cock which had ventured to lay an egg. In Thebaid, a region in ancient Egypt, they made him mirror the characteristics of an Ethiopian person. And the racism doesn't end there. Some demons are described as having huge heads, long necks, bushy ears, lowering brows, savage eyes, teeth like horses, wide mouths, bulging breasts, scraggy arms, knock knees, bow legs, unwieldy heels, and splayed feet, and even just depicted as having the most savage characteristics, being entirely black and having fiery eyes. All of this is a horrible mirror to the racist caricatures of the Jim Crow era. A painting that I'll put on screen feels straight out of the 1950s, despite being from a different time. It's very important to note that the authors of these racist works depicting the devils have no real evidence to go off of. This is purely the artist's bias and the bias of the church at the time, since most of the works were commissions. And yet, those who paint these things claim to have moral superiority. The most successful persuaders always claim moral superiority. If these manipulators can believe their own deceptions, how much more irresistible their powers of inducement. And this manipulation of Satan's appearance continues on. In the Western art, the devil is a fallen angel, tempting humanity away from God. In the early medieval era and Renaissance, he's grotesque and fearsome and embodies both physical and moral corruption. He's purposely designed to strike fear in the hearts of others. In the Romantic era, he's depicted as a white man and a complex, tragic figure who embodies rebellion, freedom, and going against higher powers. In the modern day, the devil is still a powerful symbol, and he shifts between being pure evil and being more complex, mirroring the more contemporary concerns. In Buddhism, the devil is shown as having lighter skin, usually lighter blues, reds, and browns, while the good gods have more vibrant and darker colors. And in many others, the people are white, and so are the angels, while the devil is black, a mirror to how white is perceived as good and pure, while black is evil and impure. In the art of the devil, we see not only a reflection of cultural and religious fears, but also a deeper exploration of the complexities of the human spirit, making it one of the most compelling and enduring subjects in visual culture. He's a contradiction, and so is God. The only difference between good and evil deities is how they impact the person, with good being everything that helps, and bad being everything that doesn't. The devil is merely an expression of a person's own nature and beliefs at his core, and so is God. Samuel Butler states it best, saying, "In apology for the devil, it must be remembered that we have only heard one side of the case. God has written all the books. No one will ever truly know what actually happened and how the other side perceived it all. Instead, they are immortalized as Satan, or the children of Satan, and the enemies of not only God's children, but God himself, beings that must be killed. Ultimately, Satan is a nobody, a fictitious character that has been turned into a weapon to harm others, especially the marginalized, a perfect threat for the weak and impressionable minds." So, what can we take from all of this? Well, to start, stop calling people demonic. Words like those only breed discrimination and oppression. No one deserves to be dehumanized, not even the worst people to ever exist. Doing so takes away their autonomy, and if they are a bad person, takes away their responsibility for their actions. Murderers aren't possessed by the devil when they kill people. They're just a person who takes away lives of others. Rapists weren't pushed by the devil to rape others. They chose to violate others. People who are different from you are not devils in disguise, but other humans just like you. They have thoughts and feelings too. By calling people demonic or the spawn of the devil is a reflection of you and your own beliefs. It reflects that you are a stagnant person who would rather blame a supernatural deity for their own bigotry and the harm of others than do or see the situation for what it is. I'll end with this quote. If God didn't exist, would the pious behave shamelessly? If the devil didn't exist, would the cruel be kinder? To me, I think no. I think we would still be mean to others and still act in ways that harm others for our own benefit, as it is simply just human nature. Or maybe it's the devil.